Alright, this video is on converting systems and arc length. Now, the biggest thing to remember when converting systems is that pi radians equals 180 degrees. Alright, make sure you write that down, commit that to memory. Pi radians equals 180 degrees. Now, converting from radians to degrees is relatively simple. How simple? Generally, you just replace 180 for pi. Just plug in 180 for pi. I mean, it's that simple. Let's look at an example. All right, pi over 15 radians is how many degrees? Well, plug in 180 for pi. 180 over 15. So we get 180 degrees over 15. Do the math. That comes out to 12 degrees. All right, that's simple. Let's try another one. Let's say negative 7 pi over 9. What is that in degrees? All right, same thing. Plug in 180. Negative 7 times 180 over 9. Let's do some canceling. 9 goes into 180. Let's see, what, about 20 times? So negative 7 times 20 is negative 140 degrees. Remember, that should be degrees, so that's going to be degrees. All right, that's simple. Now, what happens if we don't have pi in our measure? Say we want 2.4 radians converted to degrees. How would we do that? Well, it's still pretty simple. What you're going to do is you're going to take 4.2 radians and you're going to multiply that by 180 degrees over pi radians. All right, multiply it by 180 degrees over pi radians. This way, because remember this is over 1, this way the radians cancel out, leaving you only degrees in your answer. So this will be 4.2 times 180, which is 756 degrees, divided by pi. It's okay that pi is still in the answer, because when you multiply it out, you get approximately 240.6 degrees. All right. Now, if you remember, since 180 equals pi radians, this here really equals 1. All right, so this is really 1. Okay. The important thing to remember is when going from radians to degrees, since you want radians to cancel out, you need to put pi radians in the bottom. Right? You need to put pi radians in the bottom in order to get the radians to cancel out. Okay? Pretty simple there. Now, what about converting from degrees to radians? Again, you need to make sure you remember that pi radians equals 180 degrees. All right? But now we need to figure out what 1 degree equals. Well, to figure out what 1 degree equals, let's divide both sides by 180. So, pi radians over 180 equals 1 degree. All right, so now, how do we use this to do a conversion? Well, let's look at this. Let's look at an example. 30 degrees is how many radians? All right, well, we're going to take our 30 degrees and multiply it by pi radians over 180 degrees. All right, because remember here, 1 degree is pi radians over 180. So we're going to multiply 30 by pi radians over 180. So that leaves us with 30 pi radians over 180. Because remember, the degrees are going to cancel out, okay, leaving us with just radians. Now, now we just got to reduce our fraction. The zeros will cancel out. 3 will go into 18 6 times. So 30 degrees, after all this cancels out, this is a 1 over 6 times pi radians. So it's simply pi over 6 radians. Okay? Simply pi over 6 radians. Let's do another example. What about 173 degrees? What is that in radians? Alright, that's a question mark right there. Alright, what I want you to do is this is going to be a you try. I'm going to give you two problems here. Convert both of these measurements into radians and then leave your answer in simplest form. So pause the video and figure it out real quick. Alright, so following the steps we did before, we're going to take 173, multiply it by pi radians over 180. So that's going to be 173 pi over 180 radians. Now you would try to reduce this, but in this case, this does not reduce. So that is your answer. 173 pi over 180 radians. Okay. 173 pi over 180 radians. And you can't do any more with that. It doesn't reduce. All right, let's look at this one. You're going to do the same thing, 274 times pi over 180 radians. And that's going to give us 274 pi over 180 radians. Now, you can divide both of these by 2. This will go to 90. This will go to 137. That's as far as that'll reduce. So the answer is 137 pi over 90 radians. Alright? It is that simple. Okay? So to multiply, to convert from, let's go back, to convert from radians to degrees. If you have pi in your angle, just replace pi with 180 and simply do the math and solve it out. If you do not have pi in your answer, in your angle measurement, take that measurement, multiply it by 180 over pi, radians cancel out, giving you your degree measure. For degrees to radians, you would simply take your degree measure, multiply it by pi over 180 radians, and simplify as far as possible. But make sure you leave pi in your answer. All right, you'll want to make sure you leave pi in your answer. Now, how does all this help us with arc length? All right, if you remember, arc length is the distance around the edge of a circle. How does this help us? Well, it's fairly simple. Say here we have an angle. And say this angle is alpha. Okay? That's this angle here. Well, we know this is a radius long and this is a radius long. All right? Our arc length that we're going to look for is this length here. Okay? That's really bad. That is the arc length that we're going to be looking for. Now, the formula for arc length, okay, S equals the radius times alpha. All right, remember, alpha is the size of your angle. Okay? But the important part here is it has to be in radians. All right, has to be in radians. So if they give you a measurement in degrees and ask you to find arc length, you have to convert your measurement to radians first. Okay, you have to convert it to radians first. Now, obviously, if I gave you the radius and an angle, it'd be a no-brainer to figure out the arc length. But let's work the formula backwards. Okay, say we have a circle of radius 6 inches. Find the arc length corresponding to the angle of pi over 6 radians. So I guess I'm not going to work it backwards. Right, circle of radius 6 inches. Find the arc length corresponding to an angle of 10 pi over 6 radians. Alright, so we're going to use our formula, S equals R alpha. Alright, so S equals R alpha. So S equals R, which is 6, times alpha, which is 10 pi over 6. Multiply this through, the 6 cancels with this, but that's 6, leaving us 10 pi. Alright, so that is how radians helps you find arc length. Okay, it's simply your radian measure times your radius. Okay, your radian measure times your radius will give you the arc length. All right, it'll give you the arc length. Now let's look at another problem. Say our arc length, this is where we're going to work it backwards. Say our arc length equals 12 pi. All right, say our arc length equals 12 pi. And our radius equals 6. What is our angle? Okay, what is our angle? Well, we know that S equals R alpha. Okay, our arc length is S. So 12 pi equals R, which is 6 alpha. And we're looking for our angle measure. Well, divide both sides by 6. Okay, 6 and 12, that is 2 over 1. So that is simply 2 pi equals alpha. All right, so that's how you work it backwards. If you know the arc length and you know the radius, you can work it backwards and find your angle. In this case, our angle is a full circle. All right, and our angle is a full circle in this case. So, so what did we go over in this video? We went over how to convert radians to degrees, how to convert degrees to radians, and how to find arc length. All right, make sure you know how to do the concepts we went over in this video, and we'll work on some problems on this tomorrow in class. See you tomorrow.